Right, so on Sunday, the Gleaner published an article with the headline, "Ronnie Ready to Rumble, MP livid over NHT's attempts to evict his people." This morning, we have Mr. Thwaites here with us as we attempt to understand further what the issue is between the NHT and the residents from your constituency. Good morning to have you. Good to have you, sir. Good to see you. We were exchanging ideas a while ago on the homeless situation, but we'll get to that maybe at the end of our discussion. This issue, is this a conditional issue or a done deal? And is this just a matter of miscommunication or lack of communication? What's happening?
Miscommunication and lack of communication.
Okay.
Everyone would like to see a very robust program of urban renewal. And the government and the National Housing Trust are to be commended for instituting that in the areas of Almontown, Campbelltown, Kingston Gardens. And in fact, one would want to see it through the entire inner city eventually. It's so needed. Mm-hmm. And it has been in the planning for many years. And I have been in constant touch, perhaps for 6-8 years, with the National Housing Trust about how it would take place and how persons who live on land which is not theirs or in dwellings that are decrepit now can be improved, some relocated. It's come to a head now with the Memorandum of Understanding with the Chinese company, which is going to help finance this, and that's very good. Tuesday before last in Parliament, when it was under discussion, I rose and asked the Prime Minister, please make sure that the proper provisions are being made for the residents to be improved or relocated, not to be displaced. These are people who, by and large, have lived there for generations, under whatever tenure, and they deserve the highest considerations. We must not think of restoring Kingston and having all kinds of business and new investments and forget the people who live there.
Yes.
However, when people live in a tenuous situation, they may not own the premises that they live in, or otherwise, and they get a communication that says, look here, we may be coming to take over your premises, we may be coming to value it. This causes tremendous upset. It would happen for each of us, any of us, in whatever circumstances. This effort should have been done with proper sensitization and with proper communication, explanation as to what is the objective, what is the alternative for people living the way they do now.
So the letters have gone out to say that some valuations have already been done. From what I've read, the community members were not aware. There was no communication with yourself as MP?
No, the councillor.
No.
I was told that in one small area, owners would be located with a requisition if they had interest in selling. The breadth of the areas that the letters covered and the tone and content of the letter was never discussed with me, with the councillor, or with the people beforehand, any of the community leadership. That is contemptuous.
What did the letter say?
The letter indicated that there was going to be this process of renovation, that persons would be, the premises would have to be acquired, wow, and a valuation would take place, but there was obviously an unsettling element of it to indicate that there would be disruption and eventual removal. You can't tell a person, particularly in very straitened circumstances, that this is going to happen to them and don't immediately and at the same time indicate an alternative. Would you want that?
No, no.
Some of it's, I'm hearing you, MP, because there's also the challenge of people thinking this is quick money and selling the property without thinking, once I've sold it, where am I going to live with the money that I have? So displacement is a real issue. Where do you want to see it move from here?
I want to see a meeting, a series of meetings with the National Housing Trust and the residents, outlining the whole plan for the redevelopment of this area, indicating timeframes and indicating how new or improved residential accommodation will take place. If you come to me and say, in this big yard, all right, we're going to fix, make this into not a tenement yard anymore, but a place where apartments are. We had worked out with the trust how payments would be made, recruited people into the trust, but then when you jump the gun, it causes dissonance, and that is what I object to.
So the NHT is saying they have plans for a residential property or area with some commercial elements.
Well, tell us, no? That would be nice.
That's what I'm reading. But I'm reading now that the NHT director says we want to acquire those properties that we can, and if we acquire enough properties from people willing to sell, then it means the project may be a go. If we can't, then we may not bother, which is why I ask you if this is a done deal or if it's still kind of...
The government has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Chinese. Right. It's non-binding at this stage, but it involves considerable investment on both sides, and therefore it must not be jettisoned by untoward and arbitrary action. And I'm very sorry that it has started this way, because it ought to have been done in a much more coherent and smooth way. And I think it still can be rescued. I've asked the Housing Trust to simply let things cool a little and then to have these meetings. But you can't tell a person, owner, squatter, tenant, that they're going to have to remove without telling them when, or it's likely that they may have to remove without telling them when, what is the alternative, will they be displaced? We remember what happened in Bacawal, you know, some of us, and we don't want that to happen again. What we want is an upgrading of the community to preserve community linkages. These are people who have a little hustling, they have a church.
They have families.
They have families, yes. It is not beyond our wit, if we are sensitive to each other, to do it in a way that is coherent and is peaceful rather than disruptive.
Approximately how many people are we looking at?
We're looking at several thousand. I would have thought that the area might have as many as 6,000 to 8,000 people.
Wow.
And these are people, many of them, ladies, long livers, yes? Many of them in houses where the owners have given up, died, and they have lived there for 15, 20, 30 years, yes? They know that some of them will have to be relocated. Their living conditions are such that they need to be upgraded. One of the hard things that will have to be understood is that it's not going to be done for free.
Yes.
People will have to make some contribution, and they will have to get accustomed to coming into the formal economy, yes, where they perhaps have a mortgage but get a title, yes, something they've never had.
Own their space.
All of these good things.
So there is no pushback against the development. It really is just making sure that it becomes a participatory process.
Absolutely.
And that the community is aware.
But a big lesson has to be learned about how we do urban renewal, how we do development. And we can't rush in and be insensitive to people's fears and people's needs.
How are you seeing this play out? Do you think the NHT is going to come to the table, or is it going to get a little bit more contentious?
What has happened since the letters went up? Because you've asked them to withdraw the letters.
The letters have been taken back.
Okay.
The National Housing Trust has expressed a willingness. I've spoken to one of their directors, and I'm sure that we will have appropriate meetings. There'll be a little bit of dissonance to swallow. I hope that we can avoid some of the obstructionism and the high-handedness, not necessarily on the NHT's part, but perhaps some who were their agents, and settle the people and move forward as quickly as possible. What a wonderful thing it will be if this can be snatched from the despair that it is in now and made an example of how we can renew our city, our communities. Yes?
But this redevelopment project is to happen in downtown Kingston. I've heard a lot of questions being asked about how it's going to happen, and there are a lot of plans on the table. Perhaps this could be used as a lesson or a blueprint for how to move forward, so that the pitfalls aren't made again.
Yes, and I think that's exactly it, and that's why it's of really great significance. But the goodwill and the interest, I think, must be presumed on all, and look here. This will be epoch-making, you know, the National Housing Trust investing in the inner city. more than half of the people who contribute to the trust never get a benefit, you know. I've had a great difficulty as a member of parliament persuading those few people who work and must contribute to the housing trust to do so, because unless they're going to move out of the community, it's very difficult for them to get a benefit. Now, this is the opportunity for something different. Do you know the liberation when a woman gets a title in her name?
Yeah, and her children get it.
And she gets it?
But I'm glad you raised that, though, MP, because I know we're speaking specifically to your constituency, but Jamaicans all across the country, times are changing. And there are people who are living on property, living in homes, living on land, and they don't have anything. So this is also a cautionary tale to those people, to make sure they get the things in order.
Yes, but then the estimate is over 700,000 Jamaicans living on lands that they don't own or have secure tenure over.
700,000?
700,000. And that's why when they get any kind of letter that indicates any unsettlement, you can understand the aggravated, some would say exaggerated distress that causes. Okay? But you're right. We must build a Jamaica that it works for all, not just for some.
Yeah.
And we've been asking people to contribute to the trust for years and years, but yet their income or their opportunity to buy or to build isn't there sufficiently for them to benefit. And that is the story of these areas we're talking about.
What's the ultimate vision as we wrap for the
The ultimate vision is going to involve the creation of a number of apartments, small dwellings, improvement of existing households. Look here, if you give an inner city yard $2 million, which they can pay for, you know what they'll do with it?
They'll do with it.
They're going to build a bathroom or two. They're going to add a room so a child can have, parents can have some privacy. A child can grow up in dignity. They're going to change out the big fence.
They know to stretch it, man.
And if they're asked to pay $3,000 or $4,000 a month, they'll do so.
Yeah.
And they must be treated as members, dignified members of the formal economy. That's what we're asking. No high-handedness, full communication, full participation.
Yeah.
Nice.
The Prime Minister gave me that assurance, you know, and I'm counting on it.
Here you. Here you. Get
Thank you so
last fighting shot in.
Member of Parliament for Central Kingston, Reverend Ronald Thwaites, on the NHT and the Central Kingston dialogue. I won't say versus. It's a dialogue, and it's going to come out positively.